Welcome to the Immune Edit. I'm Dr. Doug Jones. If your immune system feels like the enemy or you're just tired of not feeling like yourself, this space is for you. Welcome back. This is part 2 of a 3-part series on all things food allergies. And my colleagues are already laughing because behind the scenes we were already arguing and debating over really honestly stupid shit. But
He cursed. We're family friendly.
in our first episode, we kind of went over some of the key points of from reaction to diagnosis, went over some of the nonsense tests that are out there that steal your money, and then talked about the limitations of the real tests that are out there. But nonetheless, once you get that diagnosis, you're going to move into a potentially a treatment option. Hopefully, you're not with an allergist that's living in the last century and is not offering any food allergy treatment yet. But so we want to dive into
Doug, that's still like 90% are allergists. Just so
I
you
know. I
that.
was going to say
No,
there's a whole bunch that need to retire.
They probably know that. I'm not saying you're wrong, but that's probably 90% of allergists.
All right. Well, I probably just offended 90% of our field, which is not a new thing for me. But
he's not wrong.
Get with the times. Step up the game. We don't need to drop our game to match you. You raise yours. Okay. All right. So as we move into treatments, I have a passion and this mission in life to bring treatment to patients, to, either educate allergists, educate people so that they feel comfortable doing it, or offering a menu, so people just have access to care and they're not living in fear anymore. So what treatment options, let's just go over it, are currently available? What is on the food allergy treatment menu?
I'm going to start with the first one, okay? Because it's an oldie, but a goodie. It's avoidance and carrying your EpiPen. That is still an option, and that still works for some people. Like
That's
me.
not a treatment,
Like me.
though.
I have a food allergy and I need to avoid carrying my EpiPen.
He poo-pooed you. He pooed you.
Don't poo-poo.
No, that may be a management option. That's not a treatment.
He's getting semantics.
I'm rolling my eyes so hard at these two grandpas here. Okay.
I was with you on Farah. I think that's very reasonable. So
okay. See, okay, Tom and I are in agreement.
Okay.
So I would agree with Farah, and I would add, besides carrying your Epi, I think Neffy's also, and I'm not paid, I'm not sponsored. I think Neffy's a good option as well. So that's good for people who are new to look that up. Neffy, the nasal epinephrine spray, which I think is a reasonable option. Again, I'm not sponsored. I don't speak for anybody. No one asked me to. Nor would I. Nor would I. That's true.
Well, there were people that were going to ask me to speak, and I just got crossed off their list.
Yes.
Oh my God. You too. Okay. All right. So what's something else that's on the menu?
All right.
So just to summarize, currently avoidance and carry an epinephrine device, whether it's an injector or a spray, and then hope that nothing bad happens. Okay, that's management option number 1. Let's go to number 2 on the menu.
Crazy part is
I'm living on a hope and a prayer then.
But in all right, let's we're allowed to debate now here. All right,
we're only on option 2. We're not getting to bundle. We're not getting to the bundle package choices yet. Okay, option number 2.
In all
focus.
Sorry, number 2. I'm gonna go with the good one. Xolair is an option that's out there.
Okay, tell us more for those in the audience that don't know about Xolair or omalizumab. Tell them what is that?
So Xolair is a monoclonal antibody. It's an injection that you get. I don't write it too much, but once a month or once every 2 weeks to help protect from accidents, from food allergy exposure. So it is there. It's FDA approved, and so that's an option that you might see commercials about, and it's available. Fair?
Yes.
Fair.
Yes.
It is available.
And so it protects against accidental exposures. Yes. So just to be clear, patients still have to avoid the offending food, but it may give them a nice protection against those accidental exposures. The may contains the kind of some of those aspects. Are there other potential uses of Xolair?
you could use that in conjunction with oral immunotherapy to potentially help theoretically go oral immunotherapy to go smoother.
And that's an off-label usage.
As of, I guess it is off label. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess so.
It is.
Like,
but still a reasonable option to, there's great trials and evidence to show, it enhances safety, efficacy, and speed of which you can do oral immunotherapy as an adjunct, but again, off label.
Yeah.
So these are discussions obviously people need to have with their allergist, and proper approach and what they want to do. Okay.
Hopefully your allergist that does also discuss oral immunotherapy. Your allergist that discusses both, which is our third option.
You just nailed option number 3. Okay.
Yes.
Describe to the audience oral immunotherapy. Describe it to me as though I know nothing.
All right. So oral immunotherapy is where we microdose allergen. Let's go with peanut. We microdose, slowly introduce peanut into your diet. So your body, it's under the threshold, significantly under the threshold to cause reactions, at least ideally. And we allow your body to tolerate it over time. That does take some certain intervals of coming in and introducing either in the office or somewhere now doing at home, where you're allowed to develop tolerance over time. And we have data now on multiple foods that could be done. Fair?
Fair.
Yeah, that's great. The language that I use in clinic with parents to help describe it is Xolair gives you protection, but it's not retraining your immune system to tolerate the thing that it's allergic to, right? So my big pro, and the reason why I like OIT, is because it is teaching your immune system to tolerate and to unmark this allergen, whatever it is, cashew, egg, whatever it is, that it's not dangerous and you can actually tolerate it. And then I think the last, I don't know when we're going to talk about like food freedom and things like that, but it is an option. And okay. Okay, I'm gonna let Tom start the discussion. So when we think about OIT and people are like, you can get accidental bite protection probably at lower doses than we thought like 5 years ago, or even right like 10 years ago. We don't need to get you up to like 6 grams of peanut to like, that's probably not how much your immune system needs to take to retrain it. But then when you talk about free eating or food freedom, right? I think people think like, oh, I'm just gonna like do this OIT and then I can just have like whatever I want, whenever I want, on whatever schedule. And I think that part is confusing for parents and caregivers and patients that are trying to figure out if this is like the right treatment option for them.
So Farah, I couple on that because people always ask like food freedom and cure, which you did a post on, and you said it wasn't a cure. I was like, me.
Was that me or was that Maya?
No, you read a story. Is it a cure? Is oral immunotherapy a cure? And the answer is
it depends on the age group. It depends on the age group.
Yes.
Okay. So the younger kids, we probably are reversing and curing. Yes. Probably, right? But in an 18-year-old who has had a peanut allergy for 17 years of his life, are we reversing it?
We still can. I'm going to give you an example of somebody. It was the first. So I created a shrimp protocol years ago, and it was one of the first. It was my nurse that did it, and so she was older. Not as old as me, but in her 30s, I think, at the time. Shrimp allergic. I'd actually taken her through all of OIT, and we got to a point where she actually had to have a pretty extensive surgery in her mouth. She had to have some grafting, and she had to go several weeks on just a liquid diet. And she was worried about what's going to happen with the shrimp dosing and how do I approach this. I actually did basophil activation tests on her, which were negative, like stone cold across the board negative. And this is somebody, by the way, that had multiple epi requiring, in her previous life, multiple epi requiring reactions to shrimp, even kind of those cross contaminants, when somebody brings in Chinese food and she's like reacting to it. But her basophil activation tests were completely negative. And so I decided to do a kind of a challenge in her, and she went off her dose, for several weeks completely. And we kind of proved that likely she was cured, even in adulthood, to shrimp, which isn't very common. So like it can happen in those. And so then we kind of shifted her to dosing to prevent recurrence, instead of, just so that there was dosing and things like that. So don't give up on the adults or even older children.
Well, I want to give a caveat on that, and because we talked about this, and there was a published study out of New England Journal called the cafeteria study, right, where they gave elementary school kids and they check them because I get online or on social media. Oh, did I miss the boat? And are they too old? It's not so much the age; it's more probably how sensitive they are and maybe their total IgE. So if you have a 13-year-old, I just saw one today, a 12-year-old, but their IgE to peanut was 3 or 4. I could probably reverse that. But if I see that 12-year-old and their peanut IgE is 50 or 60 or 70, protect from accidents, but probably not reverse. So age does tend, as kids get older, the IgE does tend to go up. So that's why we tend to think older, and the teenagers, the IgE is like 50, 100. But, it's not necessarily the case. The age is not the only thing. It's probably their sensitivity as well. So I don't want to just say older and it's a no-go, or older and we can't reverse,
Yeah. One of the things I want to ask, though, is there is a myth out there that with OIT, you still have to live a life of avoidance. Is that myth or fact?
I think I know where that myth is coming from. And no, it's not. It depends on the food, it depends on the situation, it depends on the goal. Some people will still avoid and want protection from accidents, fine. Some, depending on food, we introduce into the diet. So I would tell you the majority. We've been in this game for a while, Doug, about a decade, right? And so I used to say that, and I used to aim for that.
I'm not saying, I'm saying what can be done with it. I'm not asking like what every person wants. It's all individualized, and that does depend. I'm saying what is the potential with it if somebody wants to.
Okay, so you're going to say, is it possible for a person to eat peanut freely at libitum? At wherever you want to eat it. It's a fancy one. Some of the journals. For peanut allergy. Is that possible? Yes.
Yes.
Is it probable as an 18-year-old with an IgE greater than 100? Probably
Absolutely
not.
No,
Wait, what
I disagree with
Doug?
you.
No, what are you saying?
I have hundreds of patients in that situation that can eat whatever they want.
How many
when they want?
And taking gaps of like 4 months, 6 months, 3 years of not having consumed the food. I think that's what Tom and I are saying.
That is not what I'm saying.
That's,
that is not what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see what Doug is saying. I'm not
saying
the
they're
gaps.
taking gaps.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're
but
taking
I think
gaps.
that's the misconception, right? For people, like, to answer your question, yes, you can get to a point where you can just eat whatever cashew product or peanut product you want, right? Having completed the treatment. But I think people think of it as like discrete things, like, oh, I did peanut OIT and then I went off of it and I stayed off of it for 4 years and now I'm going to sit down because I have food freedom.
Because nobody's ever going to give that. Nobody's ever going to give that recommendation. Like even
that's not what I'm saying, though, right? Because what I'm saying is this is what people are understanding from when allergists use things like food freedom to describe goals with OIT. Like, people are just thinking of it as like, oh, I did the OIT, okay, great, like I'm all done now. And then they don't think about what they still have to do and maintain in order to be able to eat on top of that.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Do I sound like a crazy person?
Even if you quote unquote cure somebody, you're still not going to tell them to never eat that food. You kind of go back to similar things to what we do in like the LEAP early introduction study. You're still saying like, this may be cured or in remission. We don't want recurrence to happen.
Continue,
right? So you're still going to consume this 1 to 2 times a week just to, maintain. But they can eat whatever they want on top of that, above and beyond. Sorry, that's food freedom. Yeah. And just because we're having kind of a regular exposure to prevent recurrence, which is smart, they still have freedom of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Doug, I get what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I'm just saying, Doug's basically saying, like, yo, we could reverse the peanut and have you eat peanut liberally if you want, no matter what
We
the
can.
number is. And I
We
don't
can.
disagree with you. You can. I would just say most people with the super high numbers, that's typically not the goal. And some of them will have issues when we try to get that to that part. Is it possible? Yeah, sure. But is it highly in an 18-year-old who has a peanut IgE greater than 100? Do I typically tell them that's my goal? Typically not. But if they really wanted to and we want to try and they pushed it, maybe. But I'm just saying, typically I aim for lower doses.
I've found we've looked at this over 8 years of data that we collected. Numbers don't predict success or failure. Like we have
with
people,
OIT, right?
yeah, with OIT. Like we have, so I want to make that kind of clarity of even with people with high numbers, we have just as much success with all of this as those with low. I haven't found any difference in dropout rates in any of it. And that's 8 years worth of data.
You're definitely better at collecting your data than I am. You've been doing this and publishing it more. So I'll caveat to that. That being said, I would tell you that, and that's why I think the Palforzia data is really skewed on negative effects on OIT. They always quote Palforzia data, but they took the super most allergic people, right? They had to be super allergic to get into the study. And then they put them up to higher doses of peanut OIT to try to prove something. And then they had higher adverse effects. That makes sense to me. So I do believe that if your peanut is greater than 50 or 100 and you're trying to get them to 2 or 3 grams of peanut protein on a regular basis, I think you're going to have more problems. You could probably tolerate more peanut, sure, but I think you're going to come up with some more issues during that. It's risk versus reward. I think that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. So I think we're all saying the same thing with our own version of nuance.
But I think the discussion, while it may have been confusing at the beginning, maybe
I feel bad for the listeners.
Thanks, Doug,
I want
for
to
confusing.
Can we edit this one?
No, I'm hoping. I was actually just thinking. I'm hoping kind of how we navigated that in terms of our own kind of view and definitions. We can see where the confusion would come in with patients talking to their doctor. But at the end of the day, we actually were kind of saying the same thing, just in different ways. So, Farah, can you just summarize, or Tom, let's bring this home.
Summarize the crap show that the last
that was a bad one, man. That was really not great. but it's all about what the goal is of the patient with with the discussion of their doctor, hopefully their OIT doctor, about where they want to be at. Do they want to free eat? What is the food? Like, for example, in my hands, in my opinion, milk, I'm trying to get them liberally eating it. Egg, I'm at least trying to get them eat it in the baked. Peanut, if they're babies, I'm trying to get them, or they're young ones, or I'm trying to have them free eat it. If they're older, I'm just trying to protect from accidents. And it just depends on that conversation. Because at the end, we all talk about shared decision making, which I don't love that term by any means. But at the end, I'm like, what would I do if it was my kid, my family member? This is how I present it. And we all might look at it a little differently. But options are out there throughout.
Well, and I think your point is spot on, Tom, in your example, in that, let's say you have a child with 5 food allergies. Their goal with each of those foods may not be the same. It may be different, so they may want to incorporate milk, eggs, and wheat in that diet freely, eating it whenever, wherever, whenever they want, and to be able to incorporate that. Whereas they may have a huge taste aversion to peanuts and they don't really care. They just want protection. They just want that. And so that's where those discussions at the beginning, throughout the process, are so critical in understanding where the patient is, where do they want to go, what are the goals, not only with a food, but all the foods. And that answer might not be the same. But the potential with treatment, the potential is if you want to have these incorporated into your diet without avoidance, you can. That is an option. You don't have to. That's the kind of the beauty of OIT, disease modifying, whereas in summary, Xolair is not. It is not disease modifying. It's that blanket. Just really quick, because we took so much time on our lovely discussion of OIT, I do want to bring up SLIT, sublingual immunotherapy, just as a quick kind of, I don't think this launches into a huge discussion, but let's talk briefly about SLIT because it has a niche. There are some advantages and disadvantages to SLIT. Let's talk about that really briefly, just so people understand kind of the difference of that. 3 minutes or less.
I think I'm turning into Tom, but I'm team OIT.
Finally.
I mean, I've been seeing it clinically, right? And there is a role. So you're using much, much smaller doses with sublingual immunotherapy. So you're very unlikely to get to a place where you're free eating, right? The peanut or the cashew or what have you. It's kind of just really low dose OIT. And if I can get them to a safer spot, I don't know. Like we have patients that are on sublingual immunotherapy, but what I want people to take away is that OIT is incredibly safe and effective if you are doing it with the right allergist. Like we're not just giving you super dilute water essentially, or taking you to super high doses. Like there's a nice way to do OIT and you can get really, really good benefits from it.
And we've said this, even some of the SLIT guys will say it. In infants, toddlers, SLIT is basically OIT anyway. They're not able to hold it under their tongue. That's silly to think otherwise. So
that's why I call it slow it.
Yeah. So it's so no, someone asked me on the questions, a toddler, should I do SLIT? I'm like, you're just doing OIT anyway. It's silly to think otherwise. So that it's physically impossible.
It's slow it.
Yeah.
It's slow it. And the babies and toddlers I have been so impressed with how well they do OIT. They take it down like champs. They don't have the same taste and texture aversions that some of my older patients do. So they do great.
So I think some of the niche go ahead, Tom.
Oh, so my take home is probably 3 and under or 4 and under OIT. You can call it SLIT. It's the same thing. And now we're talking about the teenagers or the high. Then you could do SLIT, and you want to protect from accidents. I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying it just depends. But milk
especially
and egg,
where the dosing schedule with SLIT is easier. So like if you have a teenager and they just want protection, but yet they don't want kind of some of the recommendations that go along with OIT dosing and some of the activity restriction or different things, and they're busy, maybe it's a nice option just to give them that protection.
I would say most of my teenagers now, like my teenagers who are athletes and they want protection, but they don't care about anything. I usually give them 1 or 2 Mighty Me Puffs, which is 5 to 10 milligrams of the proteins. That's SLIT doses. Easy, quick. Put it on. You want to swallow it? Call it OIT. You want to let it dissolve under your tongue? Call it SLIT. Fine.
Yeah.
Cost $30. We're done.
It's a great solution. It's really reasonable. It's easy. It's realistic. It's individualized to them. So like, I think that's really good utilization of products.
And it's food, right? It's just food. It's not like a drug. Yeah.
I want to mention one thing, Doug, that you asked about OIT and you talk about Xolair. One thing, and Farah mentioned, OIT is just giving food.
It's
literally food. So it's cheap, it's natural, and it works. So I think that's one thing that we have to compare to Xolair. Or one thing you didn't mention, Doug, is the patch. That'll be out there by the time this comes out.
So we were just talking about what's currently available.
Okay. But
patch
I don't know.
Has been brewing for a decade.
There's too much money for it not to come out.
I know.
No way that's not coming out.
I don't want to talk about the patch today, or that's a different conversation.
Okay, fine. Have us back then.
I don't want to talk about it ever, but go ahead.
So just quick summary. Real quick summary. What are the top pros and cons to our treatment options? What are the top pros and cons of avoidance plus epi plus hope?
It's cheap and it works, and it's still a really good option for people. The downside is that if you have an accidental exposure, I mean, you can have a pretty severe reaction depending on what your threshold is.
pros of avoidance. I think there's a lot of fear, but in reality, those reactions are right. So I think avoidance is fine. And wait, we never got to talk about Xolair. All right, we got to stop.
Pros and cons of Xolair, really quick.
You want to do that one?
People that may have pros, people that may have taste aversions and don't want to eat, people that won't comply with any kind of treatment regimen, that won't comply.
So you're gonna give them a $30,000 injection?
That's not for you to decide.
Someone got is it cost effectiveness? Someone
are you think you're going to save the healthcare industry by sparing somebody Xolair? Like, let's be real, Tom. This is, but so it kind of, why don't you like share decision making? Like, are you a little bit paternalistic in the office?
100%.
Like, hey,
100%. 100%. It's a shared decision making. Okay. There's some cost to this, right? There's a cost to this for a kid that you're gonna. All right, my kid. This is what you were saying. Oh, before they go on vacation, they're going to Paris for 2 weeks, and they want to be protected from accidents. You know how much that's going to cost the system to put them on Xolair for 2 weeks, and then or study abroad. How are you going to get them the Xolair there? Like that's 60,000. Like the amount of money you're paying. You know who hasn't studied in Paris? My kid. My kid hasn't got, like at some kid, there's a cost. I would never approve that if I was the insurance company. Never.
I'm not saying PRN like as needed use of Xolair, right? But when BTK inhibitors come out, how do you think people are going to use them? Do you think they're not going to be cheap for a really long time? How do you think people are going to use them?
For hives?
For they're being studied with food allergies, right? You can use it as kind of, I know you're making all these faces. All I'm saying is it's an option. You're turning into Farah. You're turning into Farah. Stop making all these faces.
Because you're saying crazy things.
No, anyway, so for the right patient, you can potentially use Xolair as a food allergy treatment option. It's FDA approved. You can get the first few doses in your allergist office, and then you can inject at home.
And I do think Xolair is actually a good option to consider, especially for milk and egg, potentially. In conjunction with OIT.
Well,
maybe.
especially if you're going to perhaps use it off label in conjunction with OIT, because milk and egg often are some of the tougher to treat, with a lot of side effect, with a lot of reactions.
I think that's reasonable.
But it's also something that's very integral in somebody's diet.
Agreed.
I've used it a lot with like salvage therapy when they're struggling in OIT, and you're able to utilize that in those cases. There are also other cases where a whole program of OIT may not be reasonable for somebody, but if they can truncate that down and get that program done in 4 months, that makes a difference. Or like for a busy adult who's doing different things. So it may make it possible for some people where it might be impossible otherwise.
And I do want to comment how you mentioned salvage therapy. We usually don't start with that. Right. But if they're having issues and we start the OIT on milking and having issues, then I'd consider Xolair.
Yeah, it's an option, right? Part of the menu. All right. Pros and cons of SLIT really quick.
Cheap. Protects from accident.
Easy.
Less restrictive.
Yeah.
Yep. Less restrictive.
Con, doesn't allow for introduction of the food into the diet. Big con. Right. Especially with milk and egg. Con, not sure how much it's different than low dose OIT.
Right. Okay. Pros and cons of OIT, and then we're done with part 2.
You want to do the pros? I'll do the cons.
It can potentially help reverse your food allergy.
She's a con.
I would say so I'll let Tom do the rest of the pros, but one of the big things that we watch for is adverse effects, and one of them includes eosinophilic esophagitis, right? Not because necessarily the food may cause it, but it can unmask the symptoms, and then that's just a side effect that you have to watch for. So it's not like it's 100% risk free, even if you are doing it under the guidance of a really good allergist. Now, the risk of it is very low, right? But it's not zero.
Am I doing the pros or the cons? Pros, right?
The pros for OIT.
So pros, it's natural foods, number 1. Number 2, it's disease. It's just allowing for long-term tolerance. Number 2. Number 3, it could potentially lead to just incorporation. So inclusion. So your kid could go now, have milk, have ice cream, have things like that. There's a finite, like once you're done, you just introduce it into the diet. So I think it's actually cost effective. So I think those three things, there's an endpoint on the cost too. So I think that's important. And it's natural food, so it's not super expensive compared to biologics. I think those are some of the major pros.
Great. Thank you for the lively discussion on the treatment options and the nuance of that. This will conclude part 2. See you next time. Thank you so much again for tuning in. We'll see you next time on The Immune Edit. This show is separate from my clinical practice at Global Allergy Immune Network. This show represents my opinions and my guests' opinions. Neither myself nor the show endorses the views or statements of my guests. This show is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. This show is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for help in your journey, please seek out a qualified medical practitioner. It's important to have someone in your corner who is a trained and licensed healthcare practitioner who can help you make changes, especially when it comes to your health.